Hello, everybody. It's 2020-12-20, episode 35 of LucidIndifference.com. Hopefully, we have an actual video feed right now. I'm not sure. Minion, you said I was going to witness something really strange. Like right now, I'm in the top corner.
It's going to be dumb, even though we're just set up as the visual side of things is just set up as what you see now, plus your thing in the corner. I didn't plan on the game, and then once the game's in there, I have to move around pretty much everything.
Okay.
To fit it in.
Which is really easy in OBS while we're doing a live if you want to play around. I don't mind.
Sure.
I mean, what you can do is fiddle with the window right now in this screen before you even bring up a game, if that's a little bit easier for you. I'm fine with that. So, sorry, everyone. I know starting with Administrivia is one of those things where we're excited to talk about the show as soon as the show starts, but that's not necessarily a great impression. It's something we're going to do less and less as we mature, as we have less of that kind of, setup time, the growing pains, this kind of thing. So, Minion, it is your call. If you want to make me full screen just to make me more interesting, if you want to have a black background, if you want to get rid of the words lucid indifference just to clean it up a little bit more, then maybe that's something you should do. I'd like to say I trust your judgment, but maybe I should just give you direct instructions. So how about for now, you make my window a little bit bigger, remove the words lucid indifference number 35, and you can just, in OBS, click on the right hand, the eye icon to gray it out, to turn that part off, turn that text off, and make me a little bit bigger, and we can figure out the rest of the test, the game streaming, this kind of stuff. So I guess that's another thing to talk about is because World of Warcraft had a really strange release schedule. For the first time, it had a release day, and it was 1 week until the raid opened. And I've got a raiding guild, and they're not a really hardcore raiding guild, but there was personal pressure. It's not guild pressure, not from other people, but there's personal pressure to do well enough to get geared and go in and be the best I could be to get into raiding. And we entered into it extremely strong. Comparing ourselves to other people doesn't, at some point you have to say, well, we're not hardcore, therefore we can't compare to those people, right? Which is true, which has to be true, because there are no lifers that really care about numbers and this kind of stuff. And we're, I can complain about me, actually. I was pretty much dead weight. It really sucked. I was well below average. I didn't understand what I was doing. I took too much of a break from actual hard raiding from middle of previous expansion, so months and months away. So I didn't know how to mash my buttons properly, and so I wasn't doing very well. At any rate, things are smoothing out now. But Wednesday was enough. I needed to push for all of Wednesday and a chunk of Thursday, because we do raiding. Tuesday is reset day, so that's the first opportunity to do raiding. So that evening we do raiding, and the next day is Thursday. So that actually leaves all of Wednesday for us to get together and really, really hammer stuff out. And the Wednesday show, my original notion was Wednesday show was fine because it was in the middle of the week, which I really like the idea of breaking the week into two parts by having a Wednesday event of some sort. And that worked really well with the break between raiding days. But because of this challenge, and Minion, you were saying that you've got Destiny 2 raiding, it came out like right about the same time. And that had taken a lot of your time. So it turns out that Wednesday was something that we could set aside for a while. And we had lots and lots of other stuff come up, and we actually ended up skipping a Sunday. You were saying that League of Legends had another tournament, which at some point you have to admit that you don't like the game because you were complaining. You're complaining about not liking it. You were complaining about changes that they made to the game, to make it fresh.
Could you?
Hmm?
I'll just keep going on for your thing for another few more minutes. I'm just pouring out the water.
Okay, so here's the thing, everyone. Minion is himself, so he was at least he showers. So he was in the shower at half an hour before our pre-check stuff, and I had to engage him and try to. It was hard for him to boil. Literally, it was hard for him to boil water while talking about the show that he was supposed to already be preparing for. So he was like really lagging behind in he's not an early bird, let's say. And so I can't remember what I was, oh man, and this is me. Okay, this is why I have notes. So we had one of the problems is if you take, I've talked about this before, if you take too much of a break, there's a cost benefit. So the cost of taking a break is you're not productive. Okay, kind of, that's obvious, right? And the benefit of taking a break is that you kind of recharge. I've talked about sharpening the saw, or what hackers say, percolation. When you have a kind of downtime, your mind might become more effective by being decluttered. You might be able to examine your philosophies, your priorities. Like a vacation actually does things, but if you take too much time, you don't get any more benefit from it. If you just take, like if you're going on a physical vacation, let's say you're going on a family vacation, if you take anything longer than 3 solid days, you might have travel time or something like that. So ignoring travel time, if you get to Disneyland and you have 3 days of that, that's enough. Anything more than that doesn't give you the kind of benefit as the original few days. So a lot of people are like, well, I'm going to take 2 months off, and I'm going to cash in all of my this, or I'm between jobs, but I got a lot of stuff saved up. I've got maybe another job already lined up and this kind of stuff. And people will be like, well, I've got the opportunity to go and change now. So I'll go, live out of a hotel for a while, or a motel, or a motorhome, or whatever, and go tour a bit and go to Europe backpacking. And students fall into this kind of stuff. And being young, maybe they're not hardened to the kind of horrors that adults face. And so they really do need the kind of rest that adults kind of don't understand or appreciate. But they do take vacations, quote unquote vacations, that are way too long to find themselves, right? They never do for some reason. It's just touring Europe. And maybe this is easier for Europeans to do because they've got trains and stuff like that. And it'd just be like a couple of hours away to get to the next country over. That's a strange concept for, well, we're Canadian. It's a strange concept for Americans. They go on road trips across states, and they will take so long to do that. And driving is part of the fun for some reason. I don't fully understand. At any rate, if you take too long of a vacation, one of the consequences is the erosion of your, like, I have talked about the need for documentation. Part of that is the bus problem, which is if something happens to you for your efficacy, you want to have a list of instructions so that you can hand it to somebody else. And if somebody else has no instructions written and something happens to them, they get hit by a bus, then those tasks can't be done. And if nothing's written down, well, it's literal. You'd be guessing. And so if you go from small to medium, and going from small to medium is getting more people and then delegating. And as soon as you start delegating, the entire purpose is that you get experts on board that can do things that you can't. And when you have people that do that, when they are absent, sick, let's say, you won't know how to cover that work, and neither will anybody else. If you're lean and mean, you won't have multiple people that can do the same thing, which is a real big problem because somebody gets sick that part of the job can't happen anymore. So the businesses fail because of things like this, because of the bus problem. And one of the things about taking a break is most of the time people they don't intuit the need for taking notes for themselves, of making checklists, which is one of the things that I had talked about for Minion, I made for myself. The thing is, they go stale real quick. So if you don't open them up every time and audit them every single time you're performing a set of actions, they'll be wrong sooner or later, because you'll optimize, you'll spend your 20%, you'll fold it in, you will improve, and you will start memorizing stuff. So you'd be like, I know the checklist is wrong. I'm doing this new thing because it's really awesome and it's faster or whatever the heck. But that checklist won't be accurate for the next person. And the thing is, if you go on a vacation and you come back, you're going to lose stuff. And it might be really subtle. And if you've got a very complicated kind of life, if it's work, let's say, if it's an actual vacation and you're coming back to work and you don't have your notes from you to you, so your past self leaving you some archaeology for you to look through. If you haven't done that, you will have a kind of stressful time getting back into stuff, because you'll get the full weight of all of the responsibilities handed to you, and the expectation that you will be the same as you were the day before you went on vacation. And that won't happen because you don't have any notes. And the thing about taking a break from this podcast, even for a week or two, for any endeavor, amateur or professional, is you won't be able to get back up to speed properly, because you won't have any notes. And I knew that we would be suffering that problem here, right? So I did want to get back into things and make some changes, make some improvements at the same time. And so being able to look forward to something when you come back from vacation, look forward to some improvement, some change, some whatever, is really is something that helps kind of engage you. I know that people go on vacation to kind of forget and to wind down and all this kind of stuff. But if you've lined something up for your return and it's interesting and maybe a little exciting, some piece of you might yearn for that. It's not like you would regret going on vacation, because you really wouldn't. But some piece of you would be interested and might even think about those things. And so during our off time, I was thinking about doing this video stuff, which is why, even though Minion, you were incredibly lazy about, like you were so lazy about doing this kind of thing. And we had run some tests and I was fairly confident. I'm still working with you, and it's still working with you. So it's kind of a problem. But I did want to come back, pretty full strength and kind of get things going. And, sometimes it's just kind of hard.
Did you just change? Oh, right.
I have multiple camera angles.
No, here's the thing. That camera angle, you need to move it up. Because I'm not.
Don't. Okay.
Because I'm not.
No, that's fine. Watch. I can do that.
I just played with all the filters.
No, that's okay. You don't need to play with anything. I will make it work for you, because I know I'm working with you, and so I have to.
No, I had to crop. I cropped you out, and
this is a good angle right now. Okay. Don't make any change. Make this look good. That's all you need to do.
That is good. Now, if you look at
this is
now,
fine.
If you watch the stream,
now this is a different angle. This is kind of weird. Oh, I don't see. Okay, I'm just not going to use that angle right now until we figure it's a technical difficulty. So, but as you can see, I actually have some rather cool superpowers with this, because I've got a third camera. I've got a document camera. I don't know, I'm not associating this podcast with my personal stuff right now. Not really. I mean, it's not hard to find the link, but in my kind of writer life, in my personal stuff, what I do is I've got a document camera that hangs over a book, and I actually physically read a book. Now, technically speaking, that's some sort of copyright infringement. It is transformative in all manner of ways, since I'm speaking it and I'm not showing you the entire page at a time, and I'm actually physically reading a book. And it's a kid's, it's like a 1700s kids fairy tale book. So it's full of evil and death, and it's just bad writing. So it's not really suitable for kids. But I do that, and I've got a little top-down camera, and it looks great, really great. But it's not 60 FPS, and apparently everybody wants that these days. This camera is not 60 FPS. I think if you look really carefully, I don't think it's 30, honestly. But as I had said before, work with what you have. Like right now, why wouldn't I use a 720p camera? Like right now, I will move it around so it's got the dumbest angle possible. Like this camera here, okay, that is a dumb angle. Okay, this camera here, that's 720p. But this game is 1080p. And if this game is 1080p and I'm a little window, I can be a really good quality 480p camera from some earlier generation of technology. So, and it wouldn't really, it doesn't matter. It's a face, doesn't matter if it's not full screen. So you work with whatever you have. And I actually, this camera here, it's still considered a pretty good camera. I will always buy Logitech these days. I might change my mind for the next iteration of cameras if I go for something. Man, I really don't want 4K, partly because I can't actually see 4K. Like literally I don't have a monitor, and literally I can't see 4K. Maybe next year I'll probably talk about my eyes. I have very strange eyes, and the problem with working with professionals, specialists about stuff to try to learn things from them, they work with a lot of people, and there's something, well, it's kind of related. So there's something called compassion fatigue. And compassion fatigue is something you can probably relate most closely to nurses, but you can also relate it to lawyers, any kind of doctor, like a surgeon or something like that, where their existence is intimately important to somebody's life. That other person knows it and will know and remember all kinds of subtle things. But the specialist, the nurse, will see like multiple people throughout the day, multiple people over every single day, and they'll just be different people all the time. And it's not like it's like they can't remember, because they can remember a whole lot of stuff. But so many people that you're caring for, providing for, being an expert for, having so many different kinds of people, being that personal bond, which is actually one of the allures that people have to becoming a nurse, and that's the obvious example that I'm using, is when people care a lot about person after person after person, and each of those people has their problems. And the obvious one is if it's a military field medic, people are going to die, and people are going to die in your arms again and again. Maybe let's say it's like World War I, and we've got that in our mind, and there's a problem that a human ends up going numb. But there's a lesser version of it for somebody like a nurse, where they will get it. It becomes inappropriate to feel so much. They have a generic caring for humans, right? Which is great and healthy and useful. But caring about individuals, it's not like they don't, but there's only so much to share, kind of thing. And there's a kind of fatigue that happens with respect to not, like, I'm going to take that idea right? And it is not appropriate to map it out here, but I want to have the compassion fatigue idea in mind. But if you've got a specialist who's providing for you, that specialist can't give you the kind of unique attention in the same respect as you can give unique attention to either yourself or to that specialist. So you will remember all kinds of stuff about the specialist. The specialist, you're a number in, you're not a statistic, but you're a number in a large number of people. So when I've gone to specialists about something like sleep or my eyes in particular, so an optometrist is not a very good example, because I mean, you've got a person who will check your eyes out, make sure everything is okay, get you fitted for glasses, let's say, and maybe talk to you about some of the other options. But even then, a secondary person can do that. Can talk to you about contacts and the different kinds and how to take care of them, put them in, this kind of stuff. But, and it's not, I'm not disrespecting the amount of education, expertise, etc. that has to go into being an optometrist, but sooner or later, that person will, I had one of these people look in my eyes and he went, well, whoa, okay, so I'm going to refer you to this other doctor, right? Because at some point his specialty ended. He looked at my eyes, he saw something weird, because one of the things that he's able to do is determine, the early signs of something like cataracts, for example. So you're getting a little bit older and there's a cloudiness that happens in the lenses of your eyes, and it is best for you to go to a specialist who understands, who maybe is even specialized with that particular topic. But there are kind of like more advanced general eye people that have different equipment and stuff like that, can look at things, and they might have options like replacing your lenses, because that's actually a thing where we can actually pull out your lens and you get a little bit of an Android thing going on there, where you actually get a manufactured lens put in. And this is one of the options if you ever wanted to have corrective surgery. Like, people think about corrective surgery as, get lasers and stuff like that. And that works. That's a thing. But one of the options is essentially having a permanent contact lens put in. You get your lens taken out, you get little slits, and slides out. You get a new one that slides in, and it actually heals up in the entire affair, and so you can have new lenses. That's the thing, and that's not a good idea, because you're opening a little hole, and you're fiddling around, and you got to be careful, and infections can happen, and infections might be rare, but it's your eyes, so it's not generally recommended. But if you got cataracts, this is an amazing thing to do, and if done well. And it's I don't want to say it's not high tech, but it's fairly common, it's fairly safe. It's very safe, and it's well understood, because cataracts are quite, unfortunately cataracts are fairly common, and they're not surprising, is something I should say. And so so I was referred to this other specialist to take a closer look at my eyes. And when you're working with a specialist in any endeavor, so physiotherapist, or if you've got a dietitian that you're working with, or you're this kind of stuff, a personal trainer, depending on how many people they work with, you will get a varying amount of explanation, customization, this kind of stuff. So I'm not being told as much as I ought to be. So I have to go out and do my own research, kind of thing. And that's never really good. Like, don't base important life decisions on you doing random researching and looking at Wikipedia and things like that. Just do that if you want to. Don't act on it, but take some notes and then bring it to your specialist and just be like, hey, I heard about this. Like, and you'll get corrected. Hopefully you'll get corrected, or get billed more, or something like that, to be like, oh yeah, we'll have to go and do some blood work and or whatever, because maybe they're a for-profit business, right? So, but know what you're getting into. So I may talk about my vision in the I don't know, far-ish future. I'm not shy about that, but it's better to have like really good information first. And I'm probably not going to learn enough such that I can teach other people. So it's not particularly interesting necessarily. Anyway, because we had such a long break from the podcast, I've got tons and tons of notes, even that weren't covered last time or the time before. But what were you talking about, Minion? That you were making your soup. Now you're playing a game. What were we talking about? We were talking about the angles. What, did I get you killed?
No, I stepped on a trap at the very end, and that.
Oh, achievement?
Sort
Do
of.
it again.
No, I can't anymore. There's nothing to fight.
Oh, okay. You can't delete your account. Do it again.
Some progress I've built up over time. No.
So
what was it again?
What I can't remember
What was the
what
question?
you.
Oh.
My question was what was your question from earlier? You delayed me from engaging you.
Oh.
Like why don't we talk about, because what we were talking about in the kitchen earlier, just as the show was starting, as the timer was counting down, you were talking about, and I concur, the difference between talking just in audio, so the phone call experience for podcasts, right, versus the round table, maybe one camera angle out there and everybody gets seen, and we're live. You wanted to talk about that because you were saying that there were a couple of examples of actual podcasty type things that you've seen that are different.
So
to do that.
Have you seen the show, or maybe have you seen the show Smallville?
A long time
or
ago.
Heard?
One of the girls is really pretty. That's why I was interested in the show, but no, I never really saw it.
So, I can't even say her last name. Kristen.
Oh, yeah. I know who you mean. That's the pretty girl.
Oh.
Yeah, what about her?
I guess our tastes are subjective, but...
Does she have a podcast?
So Michael Rosenbaum, the guy who played Lex Luthor, has a podcast and the title's called Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. And I don't know how many numbers he's in podcast, and she's his guest for that episode. And they talk about, and there's a section where they talk about it feels different and you can't get the read of the room because doing a podcast, doing a panel or something online versus being right there, right beside each other. So there's pros and cons. The cons to doing online is you can't get the read of the room, whether or not the audience is interested in things, or you could be interrupting each other, kind of. Well, we are now because we're not able to see each other, but getting audio cues and riffing off each other plays a huge way.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's been this notion migrating from face-to-face meetings, and we're seeing it now, obviously now, but it's been an idea since forever, where video conferencing would replace regular meetings, like a boardroom meeting kind of thing. So these kind of mid-level, not particularly important, the regular meetings that a lot of businesses have, they were thinking of replacing it with these, there's something called tele-employment. But now we're seeing it full scale because we're seeing people working from home. And without any commentary on that sort of stuff, the people are saying that you have Zoom meetings, and they're doing a lot of that. And the thing is, and you made a fine argument, right? Or that your source made a fine argument that it isn't the same, because it's not the same. And it isn't the same because of some sort of filter of technology that's making us distant, and that humans need closeness for communication. It's not. I'm not going to make that argument. That I don't think that will stay true for very long, if it's even true at all, because we have toddlers that are growing up with phones, right? So it's generationally, my generation saddled itself on multiple technologies, and we grew up with high tech. Other people have been born with it, and so I don't think the tech is a barrier, but when we're doing these conference video calls, what you're getting is a face, and you're getting multiple faces in windows that are lined up in certain ways. So it's not, there's a certain kind of constraint that happens, because in people around a boardroom table, you get more image, and you get a separation of all the people, and you get more image because things are zoomed out more, and so you get to read more of the body language. And so technically speaking, it might be possible for us to do our stuff. And again, so audio becomes a problem. So I'm going to back away, and I can back away, and then you can see, right? I can back away and you can see more of my body. And if you can see my hands more, my shoulders more, the idea is if you could zoom out, right? And have your conference calls with more of the people's bodies. And then you have voice detection that will move the speaker, the current speaker, to be full screen. You should be able to get a little bit more of that experience, but you're not. That's just the speaker.
I don't think that's a good idea.
I mean, what else can we do to get more body language?
Voice detection for full screen, because there could be a moment where everybody starts talking and the program starts freaking out.
Yeah, and I know Discord's got it, but you've got priority settings for who gets chosen. So that person who's talking overrides everybody if they're talking. So the boss.
That still seems like a bad idea.
Yeah. And so it's something that hasn't been very well explored. We don't really know what it would be like. Maybe there's some technological constraints. I don't think so. I think it's just us figuring out what would work. It's a social problem. It's a planning problem. But so I worked on, I can't remember what show that I worked on. Let me look for it real quick. So I've been working on the old shows, and I just finished Early Files 5. So I wonder how many I have left. I think I've only got 2 shows left. So this is our stuff when you and I were literally sitting around a table in our
between the living room and kitchen.
It's like this. I guess we can call it a dining room. There's a weird layout. So this was in kitchen stuff, which I think would be better. The audio would stink, but it would be better. And we were just sitting down and had a different chair, and there's squeaking in the background, and it's traffic and all this kind of stuff. It was terrible. So the audio experience was terrible, but the content was really good. It was totally different than the tone of now. And part of it is there's a momentum with the speaker where the listener will tend to pause, will tend to retract, will tend to not really interrupt, because we don't have a body language cue. Like, I might be talking, I might be doing something really interesting to me, but if I were to see Minion's body language change a certain way, I would withdraw and allow a new speaker. And that was happening a lot with our around the table pre-podcast recordings. And so there's a whole lot more to and fro. Like, it is way different. And I don't know that there may be ways to capture more of that. Part of it is Minion making you more interesting somehow, giving you some practice. Because I can tell the difference in the way I speak from then to now. Like, how many shows are we in? We are 35 shows in. 35.
I think like 45, no, 43.
I've got the number here. I'm
Really?
looking at it right
Because
now.
the early files aren't included?
I would not, because I mean, we didn't even know what topic, and I wasn't really working on quality. We were
Okay.
still, it was planning. Like we were, well, what's our schedule? How long should it be, right? And this kind of stuff. And like, I'm doing the editing. It's just like I have harsher language, for example. So I have some expletives, and some of them are just part of phrases, and but they're not necessary when your language is shaped a certain way. So the tone of the if you want to call it a pre-show, okay, well, the behind the scenes before things, the tone is quite different than the actual for realsies show. So I don't really consider them. I mean, okay, so 42. At any rate, that there's a pretty significant amount of improvement over that period of time in terms of my speaking, but not yours. It can't be because you haven't been doing it really often. So I love engaging you on explaining things. Like,
I wonder why.
well, I mean, one of the notions was I would run out of stuff to say somehow. It could happen, but it turns out to have never happened. And we've gone into shows when I haven't had any notes. Nothing's happened in life because we're not doing news. And that's one of the traps that a lot of shows have is they look at the daily news. What they are is they're an interpreter of the stuff that's already been interpreted for them. So they'll go to a newspaper or something like that, or an online, the blog variety of whatever the heck.
Well, I think it's more like a filler just in case if it doesn't happen, you could use something to riff off or to possibly piggyback off.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, you'll never run out of content doing that. And a lot of shows lean heavily on that. Like, that's their shtick. And the idea is they want their audience to go to them for their interpretation of stuff. So I've talked about the choice of voice. You could go to the New York Times and read their stuff, or you could go to this video producer on YouTube and get a kind of an interpretation from them because you like their voice, their style, their choice of stories, things like this. They're just more interesting. It is somehow wrong. Somehow, I would.
Great. Oh, you're not watching, are you?
No. Should I? I don't even know the game.
It's a rogue. Title's called Hades, and it's a rogue. It is a roguelike game.
I can full screen you. Yeah, one of the things is I have a concern about bandwidth, right? Because that's one of the things we had with voice chat or with video streaming, right? We wanted to do it network wide to not send it out on the internet and then pull it back. So me viewing the podcast and viewing it with a video is not a good idea. Because you're already streaming up and now I have to stream the same stuff down. We don't really have a mechanism to save that bandwidth, because really what should happen is I should be getting it all via. So we're using Jammy, and Jammy is a free and open source conferencing chat tool. And the notion is that it can do things. It doesn't technically need a centralized server, so you're not sending stuff out to some other company and then sending it back if you're on the same network. So if you're in the same office building and you've got internal networking set up properly, then this conferencing just does things internally. It doesn't have to use the internet, which is a really great idea. So maybe what we need to have happen is minion. The OBS can't do it, can it?
Oh.
Right? OBS can't set itself up as a virtual camera as well. and then you could pipe that through Jammy. And that's the way I would get the video feed. That would be perfect, right? That'd be exactly what we wanted.
Wait, could you repeat that?
Okay, so right now you're using OBS as to stream out. But what I'm curious about is if you could make OBS also at the same time be a virtual camera. And then you take that virtual camera, you give it into Jammy, and then I get it via our
Yes.
You can do that. Because that would be awesome. Because then I can turn off Twitch. Do you want to try that now, or is that going to be a risky thing to do?
Did this? What are you trying now? This is what we're. What?
Okay, I'm looking at Twitch. Should I be looking at Jammy instead?
You can pause this Twitch, and you could look at Jammy right now, and it should be fine.
Oh, I am. Okay. Oh man, it's got this nasty streak through it. Yeah, the quality is kind of suspect. It's a little weird. There we go. Yeah, actually that does look quite good. Good idea. I'm actually seeing two of me in there because I've got, because Jammy also displays yourself. So it's a little bit weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't played around with Jammy to know how to kill your own feed, but...
I can actually drag my face around and kind of move the image of me. Okay, so so for everybody else, you might be used to something like Skype. So you've got the person who's talking or the people who are talking, and one of you is your video. And this is generally a good idea in case your camera is a little bit weird or in case whatever the heck, so you can see yourself at all times. And in this particular case, this chat program, you can't turn your own display of yourself off, which maybe that has to be a feature request that I put in there. That's kind of funny. That's kind of dumb. That's really dumb. So yeah, I wish I could just pop it out as its own separate little window, and then I'll just put it on my second monitor or minimize it or whatever the heck. But yeah, okay, problem solved. Problem solved. So if I can only exit full screen so I can see my notes. Okay, so I've got my notes here. So I do have actual stuff I could talk about. How much time do we have left? 6 minutes. Okay, so in their time remaining, I want to talk about some. I was going through a whole lot of old notes, so I bookmark stuff and I take notes on stuff, and some of it is interesting. Some of it is interesting that I want to think about or that I want to follow up later. You get references from smart people. You should go read this book. So I'll just be like, I'll put it on my Amazon wish list and stuff like this. And so I was looking through some notes and I was reading one guy. So he admitted that he got it from somewhere, but he doesn't know where he got it from / there is no source for it. And I didn't look it up because it doesn't matter to me. I mean, maybe future self, post-production self can go and look this up really quick. So the phrase is, tools and money don't make life easier. Skills and discipline do. Right? So the idea is there's shortcuts, this kind of stuff. So if you get more disciplined, if you get some more experience, if you get skilled, that's what will make life easier. So let's ignore the idea of life, whatever that means, right? But that's false. That's an absolute lie, because you can very easily throw money at problems and the problems will just melt and they will go away. You can very frequently hire a specialist. You can purchase the correct product, a tool, and it will do the job. It will do the job easier. And it may well be that a master can do certain things, can achieve great things with basic tools, but why would you? I mean, if it's not your passion, if it's not your hobby, it will be a waste of time to get into the mastery. If you can do something that is good enough to solve your problems, or that is fine, right? And you can do it with a bit of money and solve your problem, do your thing, that's great. And if you can spend more money and do even better, then that's great. If there's some point when there is no amount of money you could spend to do as well as a master, well, shrug. I mean, unless you're willing to burn a lot of time, make that a hobby. But if you're not that passionate about it, you just kind of want it, then, you know, there's a big difference between, because I want to learn to draw. It's been a dream of mine for a long time. The thing is, I want to know how to draw without learning how to draw. So I've got all this stuff and I researched it and I've got the tools and I have an art plan and tutorials and stuff like that I paid for. And if I wanted to do certain things, because I wanted to do a little bit of illustration, because there are certain ideas that I've written about for my short pieces and for my book and stuff like that, that if I were to be able to sketch some of that stuff out, it might be really useful to have, maybe to have in a printed work, because I don't think we have enough good pictures that are solid, that really show some stuff. Because I've got some idea, because the thing is, my 1,000 words are easily worth more than a picture. But it would be really nice to have like little doodles occasionally for my short pieces, because I have some interesting visual language. And I thought, well, on the one hand, I could spend a bunch of time learning how to draw myself and draw it, and I would probably do an extraordinarily good job from the perspective of getting the idea across, but not necessarily at actually making good art, because it takes time and experience. And I don't think I've got the talent for it, because I'd probably be able to draw already. I'd be doodling since high school or whatever, right? Or I could hire somebody to do the sketching for me, have them read the work, talk about some of the things I want to display, and have them interpret it, or have them, and then maybe go through iterations. Each iteration costs money. Don't play pretend like you can just give an artist a chunk of money and then have them go again and again and get revisions from you. That's not how life works, because each revision takes some extra time. And because I've been the guy I've worked with customers, with clients that have requested multiple revisions on stuff. And it's occasionally I'll be like, okay, well, yeah, we misunderstood this. And I'm that nice business guy that will go back and stress our artist to go and do something, to make a revision. And then I'll burden the price on myself. At any rate, it is false. You can make your life easier just by throwing money at the problem. But you will find that you will make your life easier by going and researching it. And if it's a problem that other people have faced, there is some chance that somebody out there has solved the problem, and that somebody has explained the problem. Because the internet's a big place, and there's enough people that there's going to be somebody maybe kind of like me who will be quite happy to explain why they did something, and they'll write something, they'll make a video, they'll do this kind of stuff. But that it falls upon you to have the skill, the talent, the drive, the time to go and look it up for yourself, and then go and try stuff yourself and think about your problem yourself. And once you've done a little bit of that, every dollar you spend will pay off, because you're spending it in the right direction. You're solving your problems correctly. At any rate, we're gonna come up on a break, and we're gonna be back in about 10 minutes. Hopefully this is still interesting. Are our bots back in yet? I'm gonna see if they show up later. I'll see you guys back in a moment. I don't have a way of showing a blank screen. Minion, you can turn this camera off, but I'm gonna step up. I'm gonna step away.
Or I'll just do this.
Okay, later, guys.
And we're back.
Oh my! I don't have my headphones on.
Yep, you sure don't.
I am so professional. Sorry about that. I am back for realsies. And I was thinking we didn't have the ability to turn my camera off necessarily, but I've actually got this camera comes with a lid with an eye patch.
Not that it matters on your end.
Well, what I can do is in OBS, I can actually do this. I can make my own scene, right? So I can.
Yeah, but I guess if you go AFK.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, we do it at the same time, but I can control my video feed well enough that we can do stuff like this. So it could be done on your end with a different OBS scene that also manipulates my video feed, which is probably the best thing to do. But if ever, whatever the heck, I have control over my own stuff. If somebody knocks on my door and I want to just step outside and I don't want to, I'm not wearing pants and I want to go check the door and don't want that on camera, then, it's doable, whatever. Speaking of not wearing pants, the conferencing thing, before I forget.
I was going to say, like, some people just don't wear anything on, like.
Yeah, you've heard that, well, there's the great...
It's not heard. It's not heard. You actually know it's a thing, because somewhere out there, someone's done it.
Of course. With enough humans, somebody will accomplish the laziest. So the notion is you can wear a suit and tie and no pants. And you could be at your Zoom meeting because, like, it would be inappropriate for you to stand up, right? I was thinking about, well, not that, but I was thinking about better video conferencing. And, right, so we've got the notion of breaking things down to the tiny little boxes. And I was talking about zooming out so we can see body language, kind of. But that makes everybody a little picture. Technically speaking, and we've known this since, like, the video conferencing notion has been a part of science fiction for a very long time. So, for example, there's a movie called Demolition Man. It's a good movie. I recommend it. It is absolutely old school, right? So know what you're getting into. But it's still a good movie. It's got some substance to it and all that. But I recall that there was one scene where a bunch of people were teleconferencing, and they had like images on chairs that would swivel around, like the little like rectangles. But really, what would be the best thing to do is to have, because other places have holograms and things like this, is what we could do is just zoom out a little bit more, and then every participant in the conference would have one dedicated portrait mode monitor per participant, and you just have your desk with an array of screens. The limitation being how many screens you could actually fit in the space you've got. Essentially, each participant would have to have like a semicircle in a significant office full of large screen monitors, TVs, for all it mattered, right? And it's not like it's necessarily an expense problem if you want to make a business effective, right? Spending, a couple of $100 per monitor times 8 for your board of directors or something like this. And each person would have them in an array around the useless end of some room somewhere, and they just step in, and that's how they do things. And it would just be from the not exactly waistline, not exactly belly button line, but the edge of a table up, full person for every single participant. And it does push them together a little bit. That maybe it wouldn't be like that in real life, in a real boardroom, but that would be a little bit more effective. And it would cost what it would cost, and it would take up that much space per person. But I mean, if you want to get it done right, that's how we do it. We're not at the point when that would be feasible for everyday workers, and I'm not. Right? So we don't exactly have a solution. And a lot of people are just going to reach for, well, we should have virtual reality. But we would need, well, the only way you receive visuals in virtual reality is wearing something close to your face, and having all of the participants in a virtual reality conference all wearing goggles, essentially. You can see everybody just fine, but they all have that thing on their head, right? It would look a little weird. I mean, okay, well, maybe we do have to go there as our little intermediate step, something like this, right? Google Glass would be the correct solution, the answer for something like that, right? Where it's a little more transparent, smaller.
Except it's not that great right now.
That's right.
It's not that great.
Google Glass, have you used it?
I've seen it in action.
I mean, it's a failed product for a reason, right? So maybe it's not that great, but
Yeah.
the idea is pretty good. On to something else. So again, I that was one note. One note took 50 minutes. That's some Administrivia. I do want to talk about some more real world stuff, because before, what I had been doing is I would have more, I don't know, more personal stuff, more motivational stuff, more real things. And so I do want to get back to talking about mood and diet, because it's still something I've been really thinking about. I haven't been doing a lot of hard research like I have on a lot of other topics, but I was curious as to why bacon was so impactful. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Why bacon? Why? Because I switched to a keto diet, and because I had a urinalysis, I could determine that I was in keto. And so I know it's not meat because I was doing just straight beef. And I know it's not the fat from bacon, because what I was doing is I was rendering it out into lard, and I was using that as a dipping sauce at one point, and that didn't do anything. And as soon as I just switched to regular bacon, just great. And I started patting it off, in paper towel. And I don't quite like the idea because it's a little wasteful, but doing that has worked quite well. And so it just remains to be bacon. And I don't think it's pork either, which is even weirder. I think, so I went looking. I'm like, okay, well, you random Google, ask the Oracle, and maybe it will tell you something. And as I understand, processed meat might induce something a little bit akin to mania. Now, don't misunderstand this notion. So you could say something like, it is an artificial mood improvement. And this immediately to me sounds like, well, that's something that would be, it's like adding caffeine to things. It's like adding sugar to things. It's like nicotine. It's like, oh, it's something that's just a little bit addictive, right? Well, and so if your processed meat does that, well, maybe that's what's improving mood. And that's not really improving mood, is it? That's just, that's a bit of a high. So I went looking a little bit more, and the thing that is in a lot of this sort of stuff, in a lot of bacon, is zinc. And there seems to be a relationship between zinc deficiency and mood. I'm not sure about that. I need to do a little bit more research, because I've just got some really brief notes. And while I trust my past self for having written this stuff down, like, hey, go get zinc tablets. Like, well, okay, past self, but why? Because I didn't actually write any of that down properly. So I'll look into it again. So I could get zinc obviously from, do I actually have some over here? I might actually have already purchased some, because that would be something smart. I don't think I know I have. Where is it? You know why I know I've got it already? Because I just take it and I put it, I fill up this little row of pill cases with my multivitamins and stuff like that. And again, this all started with vitamin E. Hey, I've got a camera. I can actually show this stuff very briefly. So this stuff is okay. And focus. See, the document camera would be perfect for this kind of stuff, because it doesn't care about focus distances. I know I got the zinc because I was looking at the zinc bottle, and it actually says, do not take with other medications. I'm thinking, wait a second, zinc, you're not a medication, you're a mineral. Like, thinking too highly of yourself. At any rate, so that's something that it remains to be determined. Maybe if I run out of bacon, when I run out of bacon one day, because boy, did I buy it in bulk, I will just have the zinc, and then I will run that as a test just to see if irritability returns, right? And I am officially switching to whole food. Actually, I've got a mug of that right here. With it's chocolate flavored, and I've also got milk with it, and I heat it up, so it's hot chocolate. And I kind of regret doing that because I might have a wetter voice. I actually sound a little bit weird. Do I sound minion? Not that I trust your ear, but when you hear me, do you hear little pops every once in a while? Like little.
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes.
You do. So like, I don't know how to explain it. And I think maybe it's my push to talk or something weird like that that might be doing that as well. And I wonder if that's going to influence audio quality, if I'm going to be able to, if my de-popping is going to be doing that. Because I'm not sure if that's my voice or what's going on, because I am a little bit closer to my microphone from later. Weird. Okay, at any rate. Yeah. Oh man, it's bothering the heck out of me now that I'm paying attention to it. And it definitely is. It's strange. It is a strange thing. Okay, I'm going to turn off my push to talk and see if I can. Oh, God. I know I can't risk doing that. So this show might have some odd quality. At any rate, okay, so that's zinc. I do want to talk about bacon just a little bit more. And so I wanted to know if you could cook, because I had heard about wetting bacon before cooking it. I didn't really fully understand what the advantage of that would be. And so I went and looked that up. I wanted to know, can you undercook bacon? When is bacon done? Like, why does bacon burn? What temperature should I be using? This kind of stuff. And so I read the package on the bacon as a start, and it actually has instructions on how to cook this stuff. And so I was cooking it correctly-ish, I guess. But I wanted a second opinion / video or something. And when I learned, and there are a lot of different ways of cooking bacon, because I wanted to understand if I could make it in bulk, and I wanted to understand if I could dry it, because I've got a dehydrator. It was sold to me as a professional grade dehydrator, but it's not. It's not. But it's very, very good. It's a simple device, so it's hard to really mess up. But mine is a proper steel box as opposed to one of these stackable plastic thingies. It's very nice, and I don't put enough use into it. And I was thinking, well, if bacon is going to be a part of my life, can I make it in bulk? Can I just dry it? Because frying it sputters and it smells. And Minion, do you actually not like the smell of bacon? Like, actually not like it?
I don't like the taste of it, sort of.
Wait.
The smell's kind of okay, except I'm not there, so I generally don't notice it.
Good. Okay, so this is one of the problems. I mean, it's a psychological problem for me. I don't want to bother people with the smell of my cooking. Bacon really bothered me. Bacon made me irritable until I ate bacon. It made me less irritable. Well, I don't want to like bacon. And it is a very pungent smell. And I was thinking, well, can I make it in bulk? Can I put it in the dehydrator? Boy, does that make things smell. Dehydrating takes like 16 hours or whatever the heck, right? And so that's ample opportunity for smell to get around. But maybe can I make a week's worth at a time? And some people are away on the weekends and this kind of stuff. So maybe it wouldn't be so bothersome. And I learned that first, you have to cook the bacon before you can dry the bacon. So that defeats the purpose. I may as well just cook the bacon, then have cooked bacon. I don't need to keep it for long, right? It's an extra step. And if you're going to be keeping that for a month, then yeah, okay, drying is a thing. But I'm not going to be, you actually can't. I just couldn't make that much bacon back to back. It's quite annoying. Okay, so I researched it because I wanted to know what does it mean to cook your bacon properly, right? What is overcooked? What is undercooked? And I learned about wetting bacon, and it is something I'm going to continue to do. I think I'm doing it right. I'm a little bit worried that I'm undercooking, but I don't think so, because bacon I take a long time to cook bacon. I always have. And so I'll get like crispy, kind of burnt stuff. And so I'm cooking with the same amount of time, but because I'm wetting each slice, I'm separating them and wetting each one. And I'm putting it down on the pan wet, on a cold pan wet. And so and I'm cooking for the same amount of time. I'm pretty confident getting well cooked. So the thing about wetting bacon is that is a way of cooking bacon and having it stay soft when it's cooked. Because one of the complaints that people have is, under certain circumstances, you don't want your bacon to be brittle when it quote unquote dries out, right? You want it to be pliable, and it would be great if it was still nice and pliable. If you're going to put it into like a pita or something like this, then it would be great. It would be great because you don't want bacon shattering and this kind of stuff when you're chewing it. So what happens with bacon when you wet it is, first, it takes time for the water to go away. So the way you cook it is you wet each slice. You essentially rinse the slices, and then you transfer each slice to a just starting to preheat pan, right? Cold, essentially. And you don't have to give them too much space between each one, because technically you're supposed to. Don't worry. And what happens is, and you flip it quite early, so what you'll notice is the water acts kind of the way oil acts when you're frying something. It fills in all the little gaps, it smooths everything out. There's a transfer of heat that's very even from the pan up into the slice, into each individual slice. And it takes time for the water gets in the way from the cooking process. So it takes time. So you bring it up, you flip it over, and what you'll notice is the fat in the bacon kind of renders out. It becomes a little wet, and you'll notice the water runs off, but it becomes cloudy, and that's the fat. And if you flip it to make sure you get all that kind of almost lardy water kind of out, and then you turn the temperature down. You can actually cook at medium low. I cook at about 4.5, and then I bring it down to a 3.5 out of 10. And you flip as usual, and you end up with a very nice pliable bacon. And so and what's interesting is the side effect is it doesn't sputter at all. It was quite shocking to learn this. And it's really easy to pat dry because it's quite pliable. And if you do pat it dry, it will stay pliable. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So I recommend that, just in time for me to stop eating bacon if the zinc thing works out. And the other thing I was looking up is, because it kind of ticked me off, because the bacon curls on one side often, and it's annoying. And I'm worried about it not cooking at that end. This is something that prompted my going and looking up how to cook bacon properly. And there's something called a hamburger press. And what it is it's like a cast iron brick, essentially, with a handle on it, that if it was on a grill, you just plunk it down on top of your hamburger and it presses it. And so you squeeze out some of the fat, kind of thing, and it gives you a nice, even, consistent, and helps it cook evenly and all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, well, can I get one of those and put it on my bacon and just kind of iron it out? And no, that thing's it's not going to fit in a kitchen pan. But that is the correct reasoning. I could probably adapt some other sliver of metal or something like this and do that, and it'll probably work. I could probably do a wooden spoon or something like this, just kind of lay it on top. But cooking this other method, it more or less covers this problem. So if you put a slice down and it curls up on one end, you just wait a while if it's gone through this rinsing process, and it will actually relax down, which is nice. And because you're cooking at a lower temperature, probably for a little longer, that will give it time to relax down. And so having the water there will give more opportunity to render out the fat, and will give you more oil, what you would consider oil, right? The liquid fat would render out nicely, and that would be available to kind of soak the bottom of your pan. And that's what helps nice even cooking, is having that. At any rate, man, I haven't talked about my onions in a while, have I, Minion? I was talking
Onions?
my onions.
I don't think you ever did.
Wow, were you not paying attention? Because boy, did I talk about onions again and again. Week after week.
I think I might have just blanked that out of my mind then.
Probably you were playing with your tablet. See, if
I would have known about the onions.
Really?
If you said multiple times.
The green onions that
I don't recall it at all.
The green onions I was planting in
the green. Oh,
they're onions. Should I call them scallions? Like,
scallions are bigger.
I actually don't really understand the difference between the two. So, but yeah, okay. So the green onions that I've got, I brought them inside because, it's winter, by the way. And and I wasn't sure what to do. So what I did is kind of open the blinds and put them near that window. I'm like, okay, onions, because earlier I would just have them in, like, I've got these small mason jars, and I would put them in and they would grow, and it was wonderful. And I just transfer them to soil. I'm like, okay, well, they should do great. I don't think they did quite as well, which is a little weird. So I'm thinking maybe I should switch to hydroponics or something like this. Figure out how the heck that works. Use liquid fertilizer every once in a while. At any rate, I brought these planters inside, and the onions suffered. But I think I overwater them, because that's a problem I have with houseplants. Everything I have dies. And so
too much caring.
Well, yeah. Like, you look sad, I will water you, because that's the only thing I know to do.
We love blah blah blah.
And they wilted, right? And I'm just letting a bunch of them die, because what ended up happening, and I looked it up. I'm like, okay, well, and I needed to understand what the heck is going on, because I've noticed this before in past places I've lived in, where I've had plants that die in this way, and it was overwatering, right? And what happened was, I don't know how they get where, life finds a way. And and you look for words for this stuff. So these tiny little flies were around. And it took me a while to figure this out, because I wasn't sure. And I went and I looked and I looked and I looked. And I believe they are something called a fungus gnat, where there is a fungus that develops because I was overwatering in those plants. And these gnats were hatching out from that. They would feed on the fungus, and then the flies would like wander around, bump into stuff. I was looking to solutions of getting rid of them, obviously. And what I should have just done is dashed my dreams of having onions and thrown them outside, and maybe they'll come back next year, but I think they were already dead. Right now, one of the plants seems to be doing pretty well, so maybe that I'll keep that one. Maybe. And so I researched it a little bit more, and I looked in the direction I knew to look in, but I wasn't thinking about all stuff. Yeah, I learned more in hindsight, right? I should have done things a different way, but I learned that you could catch fungus gnats by floating a cup of apple cider vinegar in water. And the smell would attract, or is it it's the reverse. So floating a cup of water in apple cider vinegar, and that the smell of apple cider vinegar will attract them, and they will land in the water and drown. That's false. I don't know where people are getting that from, but that doesn't work. That doesn't work for me, for my brands of stuff, for my something, or for these gnats. So at any rate, I was even looking at buying these strips to get rid of them, but I'm thinking, well, you know what? For the cost of these strips to get rid of these gnats, I could probably buy new onions. They are remarkably inexpensive. So yeah, it's winter, right? So, okay, yeah, all my plant endeavor is just gone, which just seems a bit appropriate for wintertime anyway. Next, I'm going to talk about a dentist. Okay, so I don't know if it happened in the United States or what's going on, but when the pandemic occurred, very early on, there was when a couple of participants, of visitors for a dentist conference, and I don't know where it took place. One or more of them was diagnosed with COVID, and so what Canada did is they contacted and tested all of the other visitors, all of the other dentists. So these are actual professional dentists that had been what turned out to be in a hotspot. And so they had some personal concerns because obviously, like, they're working with people's mouths, which is kind of near their lungs. And so dentistry shut down essentially certainly around us, but I think in Canada in general. I think basically in the world, right? And so, I get a call from my dentist like, hey, we're closing down indefinitely. We're going to figure this out and get a hold of you again. They did call me. I'm like, oh, well, I can't do an appointment. Maybe later this month. They're like, nope, in 3 months, right? And because they've got a backlog. And I really do appreciate that they're getting up and running. I don't care if services take a long time or if I'm not offered full, like the cosmetic services. I think that's fine. But because I want dentistry to be, it is one of the things that is extremely important because teeth are important, and waiting on cleaning, just cleaning, it might sound non-essential, and a checkup, waiting on that might mean that you get some problem later on down the road, and it's your teeth, and you don't want to have problems. You don't want, so they need to get on top of stuff. And so I had a friend of mine who he went to his dentist. His dentist opened much earlier than mine. And what he was forced to do is use this mouthwash. And he described it as being absolutely awful. And so not like, I guess it would be commercial mouthwash, whatever. And he was forced to swish it for 3 minutes straight. And it was a terrible ordeal, and his mouth hurt and this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm fine with that. I mean, if that helps people, then absolutely. I want my dentist to be in good shape. And so I went to my dental appointment, and I went really early. I'm a very early in the morning person, so I went there. I was there before the place officially opened, right? Sit down and wait for them. And they actually, when you present yourself earlier for some appointment, like first off, if you're not 15 minutes early, you're late. So aim to be early because things happen. Your bus will break down. It does happen. Things will happen, and you don't want to be late. And if it's an appointment and if people are expecting you, sometimes it doesn't matter at all. And sometimes you will know it doesn't really matter at all. But you never want to inconvenience somebody, right? You want to make sure that it's an obligation that you've set. And I had set it months previous. So anyhow, I arrived early. Early enough, and the door was already open, but they accepted me earlier, so they started my appointment earlier. Because believe it or not, there are a lot of circumstances where if you make yourself available earlier, they'll want to grab you as soon as they can, because what that means is they'll be done with you sooner, which gives them a longer lunch or gives them a break between patients or something like this. So sometimes it really does work out. I hurt my back at one point and went to the hospital to get a CT scan. And a CT scan uses radiation. It penetrates your body with radiation and does something like an X-ray. And but I've never been to that hospital, at that ward, and I didn't know what was going on, and I've never done anything like this before. And so I arrived really early because I didn't know what the scheduling was for me to even get there, or right? So I showed up. I was basically an hour early, and I'm like, well, okay, I bought music, so I'm like, well, I'll be over here listening to some music. And like, you know, I got pushed around to go to the right room and this kind of stuff. I was the only person around, and there was one tech that was there. I just like, is this the right place? Like, I'm just gonna be over here for a while. Like, we're cool, we're cool. And the tech actually brought me in an hour early, like a full hour early, to do the work. Because what that does is, well, if things are already set up, then I mean, may as well. Maybe sometimes people are twiddling their thumbs, waiting for things to happen, and I just showed up earlier, and they can take care of me earlier. I got let out earlier. I got to go home earlier, which means I didn't miss rating. so it really worked out. It was wonderful. So anyhow, I got to my dentist earlier, and she is in a biohazard suit. she's got the actual personal, it's no joke. They've got like the little plastic suit that they're with the gloves, the latex gloves that are over top of the wrists, and like tied down over her. I don't think she might have even had booties on, like little plastic slip-ons that were also tied up. They were also elastic around her pant legs, and so, but the full suit, and she had a like a face mask, and the biohazard. I think it even went over her head, and she had a face mask on, and she also had one of those double breather respirators on. And the room had a special secondary filter unit going full blast, and it was just like, it was cold air and it was loud in there and all this kind of stuff, and she's just acting like everything is okay. But it was really weird. I tend to not look my dentist in the face when she's working, so the alienness wasn't really there. But as soon as you're done, you're sitting up, you're trying to talk, you're talking to a person in in a hazard suit. So yeah, a lot of dentists are really taking things seriously, like really. And they had that shutdown to figure out how to change their processes, get the specialized equipment, all this kind of stuff. I'm glad they did it, because I really want dentistry to continue. I like my teeth, and the last thing I would want is somebody to get a cavity and then not be able to get work done because, or whatever, or not know well ahead of time if they've got a cavity coming in, because they haven't been able to get those quote unquote non-essential services of getting a simple exam, a simple checkup, because it is essential. Your teeth are essential, and it's better to catch things before they become a problem rather than wait until they are and then have to deal with. It is the equivalent of surgery to go in and get a filling put in, let's say. So next, I kind of want to talk about this one. So this is going to be 15 minutes. Maybe I can talk about this. Canadians are kind of sick of it because we don't exactly understand it, but there's the best explanation that I've had, the weird angle, is that it's a psyop that Canada has to convince the rest of the world that we're nice. But I've actually had internet friends, acquaintances talk about how they have found Canadians to be nice, whatever that means. And it's like, everybody has heard rumors about Americans being jerks, this kind of stuff, vacationer impressions. And it's not true. And hashtag not all, this kind of stuff. It's even for Canadians, like, we're not all nice. But I think there is something to it. Because I was trying to understand why I was perceiving someone else's like communication as being inappropriate, rude, like there was something about it, and it bothered me. And I was thinking about it because this is someone who, so I've worked with a bunch of people who they're not Canadian, or they're not Canadian adults, which is another concern. And so if you're working with a student, one of the concerns is they may have never lived away from quote unquote home before. So they don't actually, somehow they don't understand how to live around other people. They don't understand certain communication skills. They don't understand boundaries. They don't understand responsibilities. They may not understand how to clean up after themselves, all these kinds of things. So if you actually are renting a room and you've got a student that's living there, you might have a wonderful impression of the person, but actually living with that person, you actually have to educate this, what is supposed to be an adult who just does not understand so many things. And it can be extremely frustrating. And if you ever rent a place out, or you're living with people who are not, like, they're students from abroad, for example, or they're very recently immigrated or something like this, they're not Canadian. This is not an offensive statement. This is just a statement of fact. But their English is, let's pretend that their English is perfect, right? Because there's a lot of places where it's not. Man, you can say that English is the second language, but it's like, man, it's really good. like no accent good kind of thing exists in a lot of places. And so you interact with these people. I was interacting with someone, and part of it is maybe there's some unique psychology to the person, right? I was thinking about why I was perceiving certain conversation as being rude. And I could make all kinds of other statements about that individual person, because I don't think there was real experience with talking. And I think what makes Canadians nice is something to do with the culture, the way that we mediate, the way that we negotiate. And there's something about how we approach certain things and maybe that is what gets perceived as being nice. Maybe there's some toolkit, some social toolkit that we have as part of our culture that is, I would never say that it's absent anywhere else, but it's uncommon enough, I guess. And it's instinct for Canadians. So when we travel abroad, or we're talking to people across the internet or whatever the heck, our culture, this thing gets conveyed. Ooh, boy, can you hear that? Wow. I think that was a truck. So much of
a truck.
Sorry, say again.
Was not a truck.
No, I can't tell.
It's a motorcycle.
Was it? Okay. Having headphones on makes it difficult to hear some stuff authentically. Okay, so I think what's happening is when Canadians approach asking for, so first off, when we got a problem, okay, in a lot of places they will approach the person and they will say, I don't like when you do this, all right, or they'll actually state the action that they want to happen, right? Like, would you stop slamming the door, for example? Okay, so that's an approach. And a more Canadian approach would be to do something like to explain what's happening. And this is something that requires some nuance to explain. So explaining what's happening, what that creates is an opportunity for correction. So if you say something like, one side of things would say, you're slamming the door. The other would be, would say something more like, the door is sticking in wintertime and you don't have to close it so firmly. Can I show you how to close it a different way or something like this. Or you might say that you're waking me up in the morning, closing the door like that. And that, what that does is that opens up this opportunity for the other person to say, oh, I didn't know, right? Or I didn't know it would bother anybody. Or I didn't know that it was a wintertime door sticking. I didn't know how to, like, it lets the other person apologize. And people say that Canadians apologize a lot. Maybe it comes from stuff like this. You know, opening up conversation, opening up a problem, and allowing that concern to be, because you, most of the time people aren't being jerks on purpose. It only becomes a problem if you make it a problem when you're opening up that negotiation by declaring it to be a problem. And so Canadians have a habit of opening up with explaining what they think is going on and how they feel about it. And there's a kind of a negotiation there. And I think this is a particularly Canadian way of approaching it. We don't even think a bit about it as getting what you want. Like it's an effective way of getting what you want. You know, it's better to, I don't know what the heck is the expression? It's easier to catch flies with honey or something like that. Why can't I, of all people, remember that expression?
It's easier to catch flies with honey than it is with vinegar.
Vinegar? Okay. I was just thinking vinegar. Yep. Which is funny because the previous fungus gnat thing, supposedly you're supposed to catch them with vinegar. Maybe I should have used honey.
Also, going back to that quickly, did you get rid of, or the green onion still a thing, or is the thing removed?
I just stopped watering them. One of them is still alive. I might water a tiny bit later. I tried watering them less, see if they would come back, and then watering them a little bit. I think I'm just going to write it all off. I don't know if I can reuse the soil or anything like that, but I'm just going to put them outside, I think, if the gnats are still a problem. But they're kind of around. I think maybe they came from the plants. It sounds reasonable, but I've seen them around the house before. So I think maybe they were just, because I've seen them come from like drains. Like they're in our bathroom for some reason. And I think they're in a bathroom from the drain down our bathroom sink. And I did some really good cleaning, and that doesn't seem to have mattered. It's magic. Like they're in the water or something like that. It's just odd. And I've seen this kind of fly in bathrooms around sinks before. So I'm not sure what's going on. So, but I'm fine with, I want the containers, so I'm not throwing them out. But with putting these outside, obviously they'll die. But if I just let them dry out, like a lot of people don't realize that houses are deserts. They're so dry. And so if I just leave these plants alone, they'll absolutely die. And that's the advice that people are giving for if they want to keep the plants, they could just stop watering them so much and it'll kill all the fungus naturally. It'll take longer. In my particular case, I think, I'll just let them dry and die out, and then deal with them next year. Take the soil and throw it into my gravelly, awful backyard. Maybe buy new potting soil. It's remarkably cheap, and start again. Raised beds outside. Make the planting thing a project. I had talked at great length about gardening in the past, but you weren't paying attention, Minion, because you're you. I got a few minutes. So the video game Ember that I had talked about many times. Because I'm more and more frustrated at World of Warcraft. I'm trying to make the game still interesting for me. It's really difficult. But I am very excited about Ember being more and more real. The thing is, the lead developer, the CEO, he has been dragging out the project for so long with excuse after excuse, many of which are just BS. And so I expect greatness out of this endeavor. So it's like, it's really challenging because I have invested quite a lot into it, both monetarily as time and interest and all this kind of stuff. You know, we want something to succeed, but at this point I'm getting a little jaded. At any rate, I keep being impressed at how well aligned our philosophies are. So I will actually be, like, me personally, the human, will bring up to him personally, the human, certain concerns, and they get addressed in the exact way that I want. And I like that. So it's not like I have his ear necessarily, but I do bring stuff up, and he will notice these kinds of things and consider them. And one of my concerns is he is turning it into one of these weeboo games. So this is the Japanophile things, and there's actually so his cat died, and he decided to go to the community and have like a live chat and just talk about the game, and the community learned about this, and like we all were cheering him up. And every time he comes in live to do this impromptu, what he calls a chief chat, he talks about some stuff, and we give him great ideas. And one of the ideas was, well, the endeavor, the science fiction endeavor was a combination of old Japanese and American, way back when, making a space program together, and that's what our future community is made up, from the descendants of those people, and they happen to be Japanophiles. So that's what explains why the game is this style. And at any rate, the style of the art that's being produced, the skins for the characters and all this kind of stuff, they all have, well, first off, there's far too much female representation, which has been a problem that we've been complaining about for a while. But cute girls is what sells, right? So cute girl art is being produced. We're getting more and more men art. We need to get a specialist artist for that kind of stuff, because the one that's presently on board specializes with the cute girls, right? And doesn't do a whole lot of nice beefcakes kind of thing. Anyhow, all of that art style all has high heels, and it bothers me. It bothers me for all kinds of reasons. So maybe it's over sexualizing under circumstances where it doesn't seem quite appropriate for that style of character. And it just seems maybe it's not quite combat appropriate for my tastes. And so I've brought up multiple times, like, is this going to come in flats? like military people in high heels, even though they're like high heel boots, like chunky military-ish boots, it just doesn't work for me. It doesn't seem right. I brought it up a bunch of times, and he actually finally came out and said that he went to the artist, to the modeling, and he brought this up as a problem. Like, can we actually rework the way the modeling works to be able to essentially swap out the feet and some portion of the heel area, so we could have a different kind of foot, essentially, to skin out a different kind of footwear to make that a separate component. And there's all kinds of problems with that, right? Because it's a jointed piece, and you'd have to have new art. And yeah, it's a thing. It's been made into the game. It's official. It's been announced multiple times, because I keep asking, and I've actually had him say it by voice. So it's canon. It's going to be real, and the tech is already being worked on, right? That so I will be able to have those wonderful skins, and if I'm playing, well, I mean, now it actually means you can have men in high heels. Like, okay, that can be a thing too. That's I'm fine with that. I'm not going to do it, but I'm fine with that. And it means that I can have, if I want to have a pretty girl uniform, whatever the heck, I can have boots, or I can have flats, or whatever the heck. So that was kind of nice. I wanted to share that really quick. So we should already be on a break. So I'm going to be back in 10 minutes for our last segment. I'll see you guys soon.
As I'm fighting it. Okay.
Well, I'm back.
And we're back.
Oh, normally we have segment 3 as our Administrivia. And I still have lots and lots to talk about, and I suppose I could share a lot of that later. But I want to quickly go over something I was researching just recently. So I've got back and damaged hands, and it's not like I'm a weak guy, but sometimes I've got problems with endurance with my hands. And so I've got this giant, and it's a really big, heavy duty vacuum. Okay. And it works great, but it's heavy. And when I'm vacuuming stairs, it's really hard. I don't like doing it. And stairs is one of the things it's really obvious when it's not vacuumed. And because it's from the front door going upstairs, right? Most houses are arranged like that. And it's kind of a dirty-ish area because you step inside with your shoes, take your shoes off and put them away. And the fact that you've gone from outside with the shoes to inside with the shoes has left more debris right at the front area. And it very frequently gets tracked up your stairs first before it gets upstairs and mucks everything else up there as well. And if you don't vacuum your stairs regularly, that stuff will migrate further up into your house. And it's kind of annoying. And so I vacuumed my stairs earlier today, and it reminds me that experience is hellish. And I went and I've got one of these tiny little, it's still corded, but it's a little cheap vacuum. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll pull that out and see how it performs on stairs. It doesn't. It really doesn't. So I went researching vacuums just briefly. And I've done it before, and I'm thinking, well, I'm looking around. And I found some people doing reviews on vacuums, and I don't know why I bump into this stuff, but I found one Amazon review. Read your Amazon reviews, right? Read those 4 stars, because those are people that have something to say. And this person's in the go down the list, and one of the things they were saying is that the battery isn't replaceable. I'm thinking, oh, I never thought about that, because I understand already that battery life is a problem for these, battery life for usage as well as battery life for longevity. Oh, pardon my bumping my mic. Oh,
Jesus.
Well, hopefully I'll be smart enough to edit that out before I do my post-production. So I knew about the concern about the lifespan of the battery over the years, right? And I'm thinking, okay, well, that was a good reminder. And remember how I had been talking about the reduce, reuse, recycle, repair. And this is something I brought up in great length on, and it should be uploaded one of these days if Minion gets off his butt and actually does it. In our pre-show number 5 has that in it. And it's one of the concerns to have to think about, well, how much waste are you creating? Can the thing be repaired? And there's certain newer models from the same company where you can't replace the battery. You can't replace it with third party, and they're really expensive, like $200 to replace it from that company. This is $200 American dollars. So this is a significant amount, and I don't know if that's going to cover shipping either. So, wow, you can buy an entirely new vacuum for that. But these vacuums are good. Actually, some of these vacuums are $1,000. I'm not going to get that, but I am going to get something a little bit lighter than that one day. I've got some other things to do with my money. I should probably not be buying this kind of stuff because I've got a handheld computer that I really, really, really want. That's probably going to be real one of these days. It's Q1 2021 should be available, but it's going to cost me quite a bit of money. So wasting it on something significant like a vacuum is not. But I went looking. I have actually found one that is an earlier model. It's still being sold new. So it's one of their cheaper models, quote unquote cheaper. But what's interesting about it, other than it's got a replaceable battery, is it actually uses a trigger. A trigger on a vacuum. So one of the problems I've got with a vacuum is the thing is always on and it's always getting hot. And I'm worried about it wearing out and this kind of stuff. And you don't need it to be on when you're moving it up a step. You don't need it to be on when you're doing certain things, when you're moving it around. And this trigger on so are you?
Oh, sorry, that was me. In this game, I heard you talking about the trigger on the vacuum, but the section I'm in the game right now. It's just annoying.
All right. This is why push to talk is valuable. You can speak with intent.
When my hands are on a controller.
Well, that's true. Push to talk on a controller is a thing, but you got to have the spare buttons.
I do.
I could give you a foot pedal.
No.
It would work, but it would be like break to talk.
If I wasn't antsy, that would probably be a good thing, but I'm antsy.
Really? Yeah, you got the shaky leg.
I'm restless.
Really? Well, at least you have a nice chair now. We can talk about that. You had one of these weird Kickstarter bucket chairs.
I miss this chair so much.
Yeah, so some easily broken thing gave out, and one of the major connectors on one side snapped. But you could find a replacement, which was really nice.
Through them, but it took a while for it to be sent here the second time.
The second time? What happened to the first time?
First time they didn't. The first time I spoke to them, they didn't. They weren't unsure about shipping. So shipping to Canada, since they're from the States.
Oh.
So they were gonna email me back. A month goes by. Hello?
You should wait 1 week.
I spoke to them. They had no traces. They had no trace of anything. So I'll just talk to them again. Hi, I spoke to someone a while ago. Can I get your name and something? Gave them information. There's nothing here on file. Well, let's just start from the beginning. Do you guys ship to Canada? We do. Oh, okay. Place the order. Next day, everything's done. A week goes by. It's like, it's probably due to COVID. I'll just wait it out. Another week goes by. I'll just wait a few more days. Nothing. And then start emailing back and forth. They told me they'll check. A week goes by.
Wow.
And they refunded me $20. Okay, that's nice.
That doesn't solve your problem.
It doesn't solve my problem, and the refund's nice, but I just want to be in the loop, and they didn't provide tracking information. That seems odd, sure. And then a few days later, it shows up, I build it, and then I send an email on the next business day, and they said, oh, good to hear that it's here and all.
Well.
And as soon as I sat back in this chair, I missed it, and I loved it so much.
You had a spare chair, but it was a chair, right?
It's just a regular computer chair.
I've got the chair that I'm on right now, which I like, which I actually found. Some people, I don't know if it's a Canadian thing or what the heck, but we actually put stuff out on the front of our driveway with a sign saying "Free Take Me" before we go through the trouble of finding a way to donate it. And sometimes we put it out there if there's some problem with it, cosmetic problem. And it was not quite a neighbor, but in the neighborhood there was somebody that was just there was a couple of things at the curb, but there was no sign or anything. So I'm like, get a hold of them while they're puttering around the side of their house. I'm like, hey, are you giving these away? And there's a couple of office chairs. One of them is really nice, but the thing is, they must have a dog because the dog chewed on the arms. And so the padding on the arms is like wrecked on one side. I'm like, well, you know what? I sat on it briefly and went, give the old, man, it's comfortable. Like first impression, it's really comfortable. And I got 2 chairs that way, right? Not from the same person at the same time. And the thing about me and chairs is I got to have a particularly good chair in certain ways. Otherwise, at one point I lost significant enough amount of weight, and it's happened once before. If I lose too much weight too fast, I actually don't have enough muscle on my butt, and it's actually really uncomfortable. So if I don't have the right kind of chair, I just can't sit in it for very long, right? So it's a combination of me having the appropriate weight with the appropriate padding and having the appropriate chair with the appropriate padding. And so this chair fills it, and fills that, it checks all the boxes. And I've got a spare chair that does the same thing. That's the one we were doing the pre-show on, and it squeaks like heck. So, but it's a spare at least, right? In case all things wear out eventually, being the nature of entropy. But I will also have the spare around. I used to have it in my room, but it's in another room, another it used to have it in the same room, right? But it's taking up too much space. So anyway, I was talking about vacuums. And the other thing that I just want to mention lastly is it's £5 for the model that I'd like to have. Man, £5 is really, like, that's ridiculously light for something that is reportedly extremely powerful, which is important because stairs are a little weird to vacuum, especially the little crease as it changes, the 90-degree angle crease. And that's my biggest problem. I kind of wanted to wait. I mean, we don't really, maybe at some point recording the video is going to be important to this show, but probably not for some time. But I want to get this out of the way at least. I'll probably do another version of this at some future point. Minion, can you make me full screen? It'll probably make this a little bit easier.
No, I'm not going to.
What, make me full screen? Because I'm going to be showing things, is why.
There's got a scene that I gotta...
Can you stretch out the box that I'm in to make the window larger?
Yes, but...
In OBS.
Alright, learning time. Let's see if I click this. If I drag... Hopefully this doesn't... Okay, well, this is just a test. If I do this...
That's good. Oh.
Okay, yeah.
Are you actually playing your game through OBS?
No, but it's there.
Sure. That works for me. Okay, so because I had talked about in a previous show the problems of baldness, bald spots, or whatever, including glasses and lighting, because you get reflection problems. And lighting is also a problem for webcams. So if you watch YouTube videos, you look at the pretty girl's eyes, what you'll see these bright rings. And this is created from a light ring. It's a very inexpensive LED arrangement in a loop. And it's designed, so it's a loop, and it's got a hole in the middle. It's designed to kind of go around your webcam and to provide light. It does much the same as a really good bathroom mirror. And a good bathroom mirror will have multiple light bulbs down the side. The idea is if you have just one light here, it's going to brighten this and it's going to cast a shadow here. So if you're doing makeup, it's awful because you're not getting good lighting to actually judge things properly. So good bathroom mirrors will have 2 rows of lights and they're going to be vertical. These days, a lot of them will cheap out and just have a row across the top. So that's not appropriate. At any rate, for doing video and photography lighting for a person's face, there are certain lighting concerns. Like right now, what I have is good. Now, what I have is good for the webcam I have, which is not very good. So it's fairly soft. So you can get away with a lot of stuff with a fairly soft webcam. And the lighting isn't great. You'll see that there's a shadow underneath my jaw, which isn't very flattering. But my concern was glare for my head. And under certain circumstances, it's really, really distracting. It's a real big problem. And that was something that I had researched and I wanted to solve for my own endeavors, but also it turns out for if we want to do the live experience, having a video version of this podcast, even though we're recording the audio and the visual is going to get thrown away. I wanted to solve this problem. I was interested in it. I wanted to know what I could do. And I did look it up, and it was it's not the best video, right? But one of the best impressions I got, the strongest impressions I got was from one guy. He actually shaved his head while talking about videography and photography and baldness. He looked fine, like head on, but it didn't look good, right? And so he was getting rid of it anyway, and he talked about it and he actually shaved it. And that's a really wonderful impression, right? But it was another guy when he was just shy of being annoying to listen to. He's one of these artsy photographer types, and he was talking about how the problem of men in particular, right? Because we got a certain kind of personality, and if you're doing an interview with somebody, they're not the type to wear makeup, for example. So you approach them with products, and there's a lot of challenge there, right? So he talked a little bit about that, and he talked about the array of, and this is somebody that does things professionally, and they got money. And if you're doing a shoot for a particular thing, you're not spending $10 on something, you're spending hundreds of dollars on something. And so he had a lot of stuff, and he just said, look, I know you're a bunch of dudes, and I know you're not professionals, right? So there's some stuff that I use just for everyday things, for little things like this show, for whatever the heck, when I know it costs money, so I'm not spending a lot. And he pointed his camera down. This is when I would break out the document camera and actually show you this stuff. Oh, hell, I should probably be doing that right now. You know what? I'm going to bump my microphone. Oh, going to bump the entire neighborhood. This is totally set up as well. Okay. This is going to be a wonderful learning experience. I mean, I already have it working. I just have to press a button, which is hopefully not to crotch cam this, which is this. Okay. See, Minion, I'm totally professional. Okay. So see, so he had an array of products all stretching out here. And so I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that I've been experimenting with. Many of them are matched exactly to the brands. I kind of paused this video and like kind of judged the way things looked in a fuzzy way and went looking for some of the terms that he was talking about to try to understand exactly. I'm going to talk from one end to the other. So first off, I use a traditional razor. Okay. I actually use two. I use one for my face and a different one for my head. And that's because I can put in different blades. And so some are the correct aggressiveness for a face versus a head. Sometimes what I will do, and it actually works out really well, is I will put a new blade in here. So you can this has actually been used this morning. Okay, so I could actually hold it like this. Right? Not a good idea. It's less sharp from this end. So you can see there's hair and everything. And this is a really cheap brand. This seems to be working out for my face. And I will shave with a new blade, this for my face, and then use the same blade now that it's a little bit duller on my head. Because I want something that's not quite as razor sharp for my head. So that's where I start with. And I use just regular boring soap, and I've actually even shaved with shampoo, and it doesn't really matter what I use at all. So, but I started using this shaving gel, and I don't know that it matters, but whatever ends up being comfortable for you guys. I don't know that I have sensitive skin or that it actually matters. So the first, what I was showing, since this is going to be an audio show. Wow, this is still wet. So this is going to be an audio show. I'll talk about these things. So I was using a traditional safety razor. It's the one with the knurled handle that's got the replaceable blades, the double-edged blades. And there are these newer ones that have these butterfly opening heads. I would never use something like that. I like the traditional stuff that is unpatented now. Oops. Oh man, I did it again. I am going to get a new XLR cable that actually that is a different shape, so I can't bump into it this way. And so the soap, the shaving cream doesn't actually matter, but I have my own preference. I'm never sure about this. So a shaving balm is the reason you want something like an aftershave of some sort is because your head might be sensitive and your skin might go a little bit red after shaving it, and you want to have a really nice shave with no hair if you're going to be doing videos right away. But the thing is, don't shave immediately before a show, right? So that your skin has time to kind of repair. And so if you've got somebody who you're interviewing or whatever the heck, and they already come shaved, that's fine. So let's say that we've got that. So you yourself shaved earlier in the morning, or that person did, and they're fine. They're not all cut up or anything like that. Them getting cut, you use something called a styptic pen that has a certain kind of material that actually kind of cauterizes wounds, right? It's a more or less a chemical reaction that will end bleeding. There's certain emergency stuff like that that you would do if it's a quick shave right beforehand and you need to take care of stuff. But redness is a problem. I keep being told to use a moisturizing. Oh, maybe I should just. There we go. I'm smart. I even have a light on this thing. I've been told to use a non-greasy moisturizer. And the idea is that if you're using other kinds of moisturizers on a head, on a scalp, and on a forehead, right? Think of the things that tend to get that glossiness. So maybe nose, I suppose, cheeks. No, I guess you can use this on your face. People are going to make fun of men that do that, but whatever. So this was the brand that I found. And again, just normal skin, non-oily stuff. And so this is Lubriderm unscented, normal to dry skin, fragrance free. And it seems to be working out quite well. I don't get the point, but what I end up doing is you have to wait for plenty long time until the aftershave will dry out. And since I didn't say it, so the shaving gel is Nivea Men's Sensitive Skin. It doesn't seem to matter what you use, and it was next to it, so Nivea Men's Sensitive Skin aftershave as well. I feel like a 14-year-old girl showing stuff off. Okay, so all that stuff doesn't particularly matter. It's preference and how effective a person is at shaving themselves matters a lot, so their own skill. And you're not going to be shaving somebody else, so it doesn't necessarily matter. So the concern is don't shower in hot water. Make sure that hot water never touches a person's forehead in particular, because you're going to get redness. So this isn't related to the glossiness, but it's a very serious skin problem. It will take an afternoon for it to get normal again. And you will have to go to regular makeup, to actual makeup for realsies, to remove that problem, to actually make the skin the same kind of color. So that's extremely important. So you're essentially washing with, just don't wash your head in the shower if you can do it at all. Rinse it in cool water in the shower if you need to, but wash it over a sink, careful, and own the temperature, control it, because you're going to get redness and some other weird problems. What the magic has been this stuff, and I knew about this. So this is Clean and Clear oil absorbing sheets, and you can get this on a subscription on Amazon, and it's actually remarkably cheap. And this is a blotting paper that soaks up oil. Of everything that I have here, this is the most effective stuff. This stuff is magic. So now I'm a tiny window at the moment. So if I make myself big, so you can see that you can actually see a tiny bit of shine there. That's minimized because of this oil absorbing stuff. Like, this is magic. This is absolutely magic. So, and right, you can optionally have it so that it automatically dispenses one whenever you open it, this kind of stuff. Okay, and so the way it gets used is you're just blotting it on the head, right? So you can sit the person down and know where the glare is and focus really deeply on that, and then just pat that. I don't know if there's some technique to use this properly. There probably is. Figure it out. And the thing is, I don't have a lot of oil left, but there's always going to be some. But it's really dead easy to use. So this is me. Okay, so this is from this. Okay, so from this nice and clean to this. You're not necessarily getting an authentic color out of this camera, right? And you can use much, much more. So every couple of hours, if you're doing videos, do this again. And the difference is, this is magic. The other thing that I was recommending, and this is one of the things that I'm hesitant about, because this is makeup. This is actual makeup material. If I can close this silly, I can't. The other thing, and it's actual makeup, okay, is this stuff. Okay, so this is Rimmel London Stay Matte Powder. And this is a transparent matte powder, and they come in skin tones. But I don't know what skin tone I am. Sorry, I'm not, like, I don't know what skin tones exist. So I'm looking at a bunch of stuff on a screen, and I don't know if the screen color is correct. And what do I do? Look into, do I take a picture of myself and put myself up on the screen next to the different products? Like, what happens if I get the wrong color? Right? This is actually pretty cheap. This is about $10. And I think this is called a compact, or that's a different kind of thing. I don't know, makeup terms, I don't really feel like making this a hobby. So, okay. So I got this shipped in by Amazon, and it was remarkably cheap, maybe $10 Canadian, which was really nice. And I got like a $3 brush of some sort. And it doesn't matter what you get. This is e.l.f. There's a package. It's a Kabuki brush, and it's just needs to be big enough to actually fit, you know, on a person's head. And I suppose it doesn't matter what kind of brush you use. I was looking at some that come in a retractable little tube, but they're all really small. So the idea is to get really good coverage, and this does seem to work quite well. Just kind of like dab it on. I guess it's probably going to sprinkle all over the place if you're not very careful, and then just kind of like rub it in, paying attention to where the actual glare is. Now, I don't, like, you must get rid of the oil first. You must use one of these oil absorbing pads first. You must. I don't know that this is particularly effective, but it's nice, I guess. Like, I can't really tell the difference, because the getting rid of the oil in the first place is what really does it. So I wanted to share all that. And the other concern is blemishes. And I can't get a straight answer out of people to understand how to get rid of blemishes. What I want is some cure, some overnight thing where you notice that there's something coming, and then you just dab something on it, and then it goes away overnight. And what I know that there are these little stickers that you put on overnight, and they draw out the pus, and it's magic in the morning. And I guess that's what I'm going to go to, but they're very expensive. And I was given this other stuff that, I mean, I was advised to try this. You know, you go, there's that one lady, and I just decided to walk up to her and be like, hi, you know this stuff. Do you understand? And I was, my other concern is, when is this stuff going to expire? Because I don't get breakouts or anything like that, because I don't wear makeup. So my skin isn't abused. And it's just, you know, warm soap and water a couple times a day and wash your face that way. So this is a Vici Laboratories Normaderm Hyalu Spot. So the idea is that you squeeze a bit out and you kind of dab it onto stuff. This does nothing. This was expensive, and this does nothing. So that is my final problem for dealing with skin on camera, is no hot showers, shave carefully, shave everything a significant amount of time earlier, so that if you cut anything, you can address that and it can be healed. I don't think that, because I'm not going to use a daily moisturizer, so maybe I need to, and that will get rid of a lot of the concern in the first place, right? But absolutely, this Clean and Clear or whatever other, I don't know that this is particularly good from this brand, but it was certainly cheap. And I'll start collecting a whole lot of this, and I will use, you will probably use 2 before entering into something, and then 1 an hour or 2 later, depending on you, and maybe depending on temperature or something like that. What do I know? At any rate, so I wanted to talk about that stuff. I will talk about this in the future when I understand more, when I use it. And I'll probably make a video for myself personally on my YouTube channel going over all of the, I still have in my head going over 100% of everything that I've learned, having like a 4-hour lecture on everything that I've learned about making a podcast, about speaking or topics or to-do lists or and going to the video stuff and talking about lighting, talking about microphones, talking about room acoustics, all the things that I have learned over it is years now, although for this podcast it's been however long, right? It's been months and months and months. So Minion, you're in a game, so you don't have a moment to show your gameplay, so I'm fine just being a face.
I can switch back. I can pause it.
If you would like, that's fine. So the Administrivia, I want to finish with Administrivia. So Minion, I'm interested in what you've actually been working on, thinking about, what you've accomplished, if anything. Right now,
related to the show or whatever I've done.
The show, yeah, for sure. Have you figured out the RSS stuff that we were concerned about, WordPress?
I have not.
Have you?
RSS, I have not touched it. I logged into the backend you created for me, played around with it for a minute, and then stopped.
Okay, so do you have a plugin in mind for WordPress?
Not yet. No, I haven't looked up anything.
So why did you have me install WordPress? You just heard of something?
I know WordPress has a sea of stuff to play with. And there are various things I could possibly use.
Okay, so you just think it's the right direction to go in, that it's inevitable you'll find something.
Possible direction.
Okay, no problem. And as I said, hosting audio files or whatever the heck it's taken care of. You don't have to worry about that stuff. As soon as you can prove it's the right collection of stuff to do, I will figure the hosting stuff out and I'll get a new installation of WordPress. And I purchased some themes for WordPress at some point, but I think they're an earlier version of WordPress, all this kind of stuff. But making that the website would be the thing to do. So because you'd have one blog post per show, probably. I don't know, depending on how it works. But yeah. So you figuring that out is urgent because we don't have a podcast yet, technically speaking. Now, if you want things on YouTube, which we're still going to do, YouTube performs because thumbnails are good. So right now, we're not nearly as active because of thumbnails. And so you need to figure out how to do thumbnails better, how to make thumbnails. I'll have dumb pictures of me and you can have my face up there because people respond to faces. You need to have text that maybe brings up, like for every one of the clips, you would have some shorthand of the title because it's generally the topic. And for the podcast, you still need some kind of artwork and a person. So me in various positions of talking that we can just take pictures of and just kind of splice in after the fact and do that for every single, even the old clips, but we definitely need to do that going forward. Like that's absolutely critical. Like that is more critical than doing the RSS stuff. And this is something I'm probably going to rail on again and again to get done. I don't want to have to do all this stuff. I don't want to have to do everything. So you have to start obsessing over something to actually accomplish for the show, because right now, you're just shy of useless, and it's a problem, right? And it isn't that I'd like you. You have been quite interesting to listen to in previous shows. It isn't just that; it's what you can do to contribute to the success of the endeavor. You've talked to me, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but you've talked to me about your interest in the cooking stuff, the baking stuff. That is something I want to do in the future, but I mean, if it's going to be like this why bother? Why would I need you? I would just do it on my own. I mean, I've got all the equipment and I've got the know-how, and I would make thumbnails. And I know how to make scripting and all this kind of stuff for this. And you haven't produced anything yet. So it sucks. So it really does suck. So yeah, thumbnails, absolutely. Thumbnails you need to do. So less depressing, I'm going to talk about some of the improvements that I have made since really our last shows. So I guess the first thing is we have had problems with sync.com. We've got a shared folder that uses the internet to push stuff around. Minion, you had the idea of, because since you actually have network training and actually setting up a shared folder for us to push our data around, which is a better idea than us using a internet synchronizing service, because that takes bandwidth, that takes time. So doing something internally, but I still think using a synchronization tool is just fine, because it doesn't matter how long it takes. I will process your show data tomorrow, right? So it doesn't matter if it takes a while to get to me. But one of the things you've done, which I appreciate that you remember to do this, is so for everybody listening, we don't download the audio stream when we're recording live, when we're sending stuff out live. Minion and I each have an instance of Audacity that is recording our microphone locally. So it's spooling it out to disk. So whatever gets streamed out there, it doesn't matter. Any audio hiccups and stuff like that does not influence the show. We get the pure raw data from microphone to our disk. And we're all recorded in separate tracks, which lets us do post-processing later. Well, by us, I mean it lets me do post-processing later with different settings for different microphones. And where was I going with that? Now I can't remember what I was saying. So what Minion is doing is you're saving your data, but you're saving it directly into the synchronizing folder. And as we're doing the show, it's actually downloading it, synchronizing it to my computer live. And so I think it's going to be no time at all for once the show is done for me to have everything, which I think is wonderful. We had some problems with sync.com possibly corrupting data. I think some of it was user error, because Minion is Minion. So problems were made. And I recovered from some of it, but it occurred a second time, and I don't know why. And trusting sync.com is really important, because I'm not going to throw money at them until I can determine that this is the correct way to do things. So this will be our live test for that. If the Audacity project is correctly transferred and works and I can open it, then I will give money to these guys. I was planning on doing it this month. I think I'm not going to, Christmas, right? Christmas is always a little bit weird for money. And I didn't plan for it. I happened to have extra money for, well, in my case, Starfrit, for purchasing new Tupperware, which I could talk about at some future point. What the heck is it? Is it Black Friday is what the Americans call it?
Yep.
And so that kind of snuck up on me, but I spent some money on a bunch of stuff, which is all like stuff that is rated at being baked at 400 degrees Celsius. It's crazy good stuff. Except for some drama where I actually had to have a phone call with one of them to sort some of this stuff out. At any rate, I want to talk about something else at least. So I rearranged a chunk of the way my computer is positioned. So I've got a computer that's specifically built to be silent, to be low temperature, low power, and I moved it up a shelf. And I've got shelves they're not shop shelves, but they're designed to be heavy duty, and they actually have holes in them. What I decided to do is I decided to get they're Well, they're made for hanging pants. But I got one of them, and it's just like an L that hangs, and I hooked it underneath, and I looped all of my long cables up underneath and twist tied them, and I have them hanging on the bottom shelf underneath out of the way, and I have all of my cables going from the back of my computers down, looped around like that, and then out to my surge suppressor and out to my monitors and stuff like that. I don't have the correct lengths of all of my cables for all my wires and stuff like that just yet. And I've had some weird issues with USB hubs. It's just bothering me. And part of it is like the way I have it set up right now is, oh, actually, I wonder if I can kind of show it. Or where's my mouse? Man, you have two monitors. Can't see your mouse.
Just right click.
And if I do this, you can actually see all three cameras at the same time, right? So I have all three cameras at the same time. Now, getting this to work with Audacity is actually a challenge. Is actually quite a challenge, because apparently my USB 3.0 powered hub doesn't work with all three cameras at the same time. And I don't know why, because it's supposed to, quote unquote, supposed to provide the power, but I will get like SOS signals and blinking lights from the webcams. So the arrangement I managed to figure out is my primary webcam, which will work with the hub, which is good because I would have cable length issues. My document camera will work with the hub at the same time, which is good because I really have cable length issues on that. And then I've got this other secondary camera, my older generation 720p camera. I actually have just a longer USB cable for it and plugged it more or less directly into my computer. So for some reason, they were not all happy together. And this is the sort of thing that happens if you're assuming that you can just move things around or have parts working together. I didn't have enough power to get my keyboard and mouse and another object going at the same time. I had problems powering a webcam that way through a hub built into my keyboard. I had different USB hubs that were not working the way I want. I had cable length issues for all kinds of stuff. I had it just went on and on. And it took me quite a long time to figure out how to arrange my computing stuff. It's the strangest thing. I moved it a foot vertically in the Z axis, and it took me more than an hour just to figure all this stuff out. But I like what I've done, and I have fun doing it. I'm the type, right? I'm the old school physical computer-y type, and I had fun doing it, had fun figuring it out. And I think the effect is really wonderful. And I paid attention to some of the rest of the area. So one of the things is, you can see it kind of in the little window back here. And if you're listening at home, what I've got behind me is I've arranged things to move my microphone. I've talked about before how I'm pointing the less sensitive side, so the back side, toward, in this case, this room's got a fireplace there, and that's essentially a hole punch right through the outside. And so sound out there is a problem because it really easily makes it in here. But the rest of that's traffic out in that direction. And the sensitive side of the microphone is pointed to the inner part of the house. And I'm requesting that people don't do laundry at this particular showtime. And so it's quite quiet in the front. And so I moved my desk and all my equipment and all this kind of stuff with this in mind. And one of the problems is now that I've got a camera there, I have to have something interesting behind me. But I don't. I've got a blank wall. But what I did is, because of the angle of this, I've actually got two blank walls because I'm kind of in a little bit of a nook. It's not as cornery as you might think, because you can see the edge of the two walls because I'm not flat on. I actually have the seam in the background. It looks really good. I like it. I'm going to keep that. I don't think you can quite see the scratches in the wall here. Oh, you can just barely. It's actually off screen if I'm cropped. But, and I can paint that, and I can put padding up and stuff like that. So I can actually really control the audio back there. the supposed reverberation that's supposed to happen, but it's not. People are just lying. The acoustics that I'm getting right now, they actually sound really good. Maybe I need to do some more testing. Who knows? At any rate, the visuals behind me, it's a wonderful flat picture that I've got here. I'm popping right out. My chair looks good because it's not doesn't have a brand splashed across the back. It's nice and padded. It's not one of these weird red bright things. And I've taken care of the glare across my head. The lighting is just fine in here. I don't like it for my eyes in the real world, but it looks great on camera. And the background has a beautiful kind of beigey matte appearance with that nice, interesting little seam that's on one side. And I think this is a wonderful presentation. And what I will likely do in the future, and it's kind of a cost thing to do right. Now I can do it for cheap and just get the perception of quality, which might be good enough for me to sell my voice as a service, as a product, is I can actually get acoustic, quote unquote, acoustic foam, put it back, getting proper acoustic foam, and putting it back there. It's a really obvious presentation. It's just kind of a little corner. So it's two sides, and I can actually make it quite interesting to look at and get a pattern there, or I have something in mind, just a fantastic appearance for this particular foam. Maybe it's temporarily out of stock, but it's a great pattern. And I've got some other stuff that I'm looking at. So that is beauty, and maybe that would improve audio a little bit more. Now, the reason it's important to improve audio behind me is flat walls will reverberate, will redirect audio. It'll splash it back into the sensitive side of the microphone. And so you really want to have, I've actually got, like I said before, I've got an IKEA, like a portable clothesline, a rack that I can actually hang a bunch of t-shirts on. So I can go to a thrift store and buy a bunch of t-shirts, and I can actually have that, wheel that out behind me, or you can put hooks up on the wall and hang down whatever the heck, just to have some texture back there. And that will help a little bit. But the thing is, I'm on an angle. I'm on a really strange angle just because of the way I wanted to set this stuff up. And that means that audio bouncing back is going to shatter in strange directions before it even gets to the microphone. So I'm not going to get the reverberation effects that I would if the sensitive side was pointed directly at the flat of a wall. I'm not going to get that roomy sound, and everything in front of me to the back side of the microphone is actually a really strangely shaped stuff. The biggest problem is that I've got a second monitor that is flat, that is right there, and that's not. If you had just an open space behind with stuff back there in like a regular room that's full of stuff, it's got things on the walls, right? That room acoustic would be great back there. And so your voice passing past the sensitive side of your microphone out into the room takes a while. It fuzzes out a bunch. By the time it gets back here, it gets back to the insensitive side of your microphone. It's not going to sound bad. It's not going to echo like a bathroom, and it'll wash past you. It'll bounce back and get back into the sensitive side. It will have fuzzed out way back there, and by the time it bounces back, it reflects, it shatters. And by the time that gets to the sensitive side of a microphone, it's going to be meaningless. It's going to be meaningless. And I think right now I've got great sounding audio. Really, you can have a low quality microphone if you think about the setup correctly, you think about the environment well. You hang towels for all it matters, right? Get a clothesline, which I actually have that I'm going to mount. It's not meant for acoustics. It's meant for, I'm going to have to dry. If you put you're not supposed to put your pants in the dryer because it's not 100% cotton. And the stuff that isn't cotton actually gets damaged from the heat from drying, and you get sagginess and this kind of stuff. So you're supposed to, okay, I'm listening to women talking about clothing and things like this. And so I'm learning, right? It's hard, but I'm learning. And so I'm supposed to treat clothes a certain way, right? So I'm not going to explain why I want to research. It's just I had a bookmark. I've talked about this in a couple of shows ago. Anyway, how much time do we have left?
0.
Are we done?
We're done.
We're done. Okay. So this has been 2020 12/20. It's episode 35. We're going to be weekly. We're going to be weekly on Sundays, which means we're going to be here on the 27th. Minion, do you have vacation plans? Or you're doing things with family over
None
the
that I
whatever
know
the heck?
of.
No, it could be surprise stuff.
It might be last minute thing. At that point, I might just say no.
Okay, so it's going to be. It is likely that we're going to be back on December the 27th, and we're going to be continuing on Sundays. Minion, what's your thought about shifting the show from Sundays to a different day?
It
Does
doesn't
it matter?
I remain unaffected.
My worry is so our listeners might not appreciate staying up fairly late on a Sunday if they have work on Monday. That's the only concern that I have. And because Wednesday's out, we don't need to have that weird balance between the distance between week show 1 and week show 2. We don't have to have that distance, so we can shift the one day over to whatever. So if you wanted to say Saturday night, would you be okay with being the social one and making sure that everybody's okay with Saturday instead? Just this time of day, obviously. So 4 hours or so for not doing laundry. That's the concern.
Okay.
If you can if they say it's okay, if they say it's not okay, then we can keep it on Sunday. I don't mind. I'm just concerned about our audience, right? So people who are just, home and they're not, obviously a lot of people aren't going out on Saturdays, and I don't care if we're competing. This is just the live stuff. People can listen to an actual podcast anytime they want. At any rate, we're done. We can talk about this stuff in our own time off show. And as I said, if you like what you hear, you can visit us on lucidindifference.com and check out our clip intro, which is still silly and insane. And check out our clips. If you like our clips, you can see our full shows. This show is probably going to be released in a few days, and we'll see you guys in one more week. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.